seeing the delayed impacts from the multi-year malaise in the Chinese property market, which is a key driver of steel demand. And obviously steel demand translates into iron ore demand. So both of those commodities are feeling the freeze from that malaise. And I think we must remember that it has a secondary effect as well. So a lot of local government funding comes from land sales for the property market. And as that dries up, funding is drying up, and it's no longer that easy to reinvest that money back into infrastructure, which has been up to now been a sort of a counter-cyclical balance. So it's just the demand side on Chinese steel is pretty weak and doesn't look like it's going to recover in the near term.
And how about China as an exporter of steel? Have they been flooding the market with cheap steel? I've heard that from some other of the global steel producers.
So yes, the exports of Chinese steel has been rising, and in terms of we think somewhere in terms of net exports, we're probably going to see about 100 million tons come out of the country this year. So that's exports minus imports, and it's been historically it's always been the sort of relief valve for Chinese steel producers. When local markets are weak and you get a good price differential between, let's say, Europe, the US, and China itself, you start seeing a lot more Chinese steel into the market. It doesn't necessarily find its way directly into Europe and the US, but it's got a domino effect. So it'll export to its neighbors, and the neighbors will then consequently try and export elsewhere as well. So it's got this sort of east to west domino effect.
Hey, Grant, I mean, this is a cyclical industry, right? It's how it goes. What part of this is beyond normal cyclicality?
So the key question, and it's a debating point, is the Chinese steel market or steel demand in structural decline? So it's been growing for a number of years. We had a sort of a cyclical downturn between 2014 and 2016 when there was a tightening of credit in the country, and at the time, commentators were saying, well, look, this is peak steel in China. Lo and behold, it recovered. It was proved to be more cyclical. So I guess the question is this the start of or the does this mark peak steel in China, as we've seen in other industrialized countries like the US and Japan, where steel declines once it reaches a peak? So I guess that this is the debating point. I certainly, my personal view is that yes, we're reaching certainly peak steel, and now the question is how quickly does it decline? And maybe there are support measures just to ensure that it doesn't decline too quickly. It doesn't drop sort of 20% over the next 5 years.